The desert sky was burning orange when the first alien ships arrived without warning. No signals, no broadcasts, just silent shadows falling over the mountains. The humans stationed at Outpost 17 looked up in confusion, thinking it was just a dust storm rolling in. Private Cade Nolan squinted through his visor. He had seen combat before, but this felt different. The stillness, the tension, the sudden silence across the comms, it all pointed to one thing. Trouble. The first blast hit the comm tower. Fire exploded into the sky as debris rained down over the command post. The shockwave knocked Cade off his feet, and when he looked up, half his squad was already down. Cade crawled toward the wreckage, grabbing his rifle as flames licked the ground around him. Screams echoed across the outpost. The enemy hadn't even landed yet, but the damage was already done. By nightfall, the desert had turned red with firelight. Cade and a handful of survivors pulled back into the canyon system, away from the open plains. They had no idea who the attackers were or what they wanted. They weren't raiders, Cade muttered to himself. They moved too fast, too precise, like they knew the terrain already. He glanced at Corporal Vesa, who had taken command. After the captain was lost, "Keep moving," she ordered. "We find higher ground and call for help. Whatever that was, it's not over yet." Her voice was steady, but even she couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. When dawn came, the survivors realized they had not escaped the enemy, they had entered its hunting ground. Strange markings appeared on rocks. The wind carried voices that didn't belong to any human tongue. They were being watched. Then they saw her. She stepped down from a rocky ledge like a goddess from a forgotten myth. Tall, striking with glowing eyes and striped emerald skin. Her hair flowed like vines in the wind, and her tail curled behind her, slow and threatening. The men froze. Even Cade, who had fought in 3 planetary campaigns, didn't move. This wasn't just an alien soldier. She looked like royalty. A queen in armor made of bone and crystal, standing with deadly grace. "Put down your weapons," she spoke in perfect English. "You have entered sacred ground. That is a death offense." Her voice was calm, but there was no doubt in her words. Vesa slowly raised her hands. "We didn't know. We're not your enemies. We're just trying to survive," she said carefully, trying not to make a wrong move. But Cade had already stepped forward. He wasn't thinking. Rage boiled in his chest after seeing what her people had done. Burned friends, blasted homes. He shouted at her, "You think you can threaten us on our own land?" And then, in a flash of fury, he did something unthinkable. He reached out and grabbed her tail. The canyon fell silent. Every alien soldier nearby drew their weapons, aiming at Cade's head. Even Vesa gasped in shock. Time seemed to freeze around them. But the queen didn't kill him. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she stared at him. Not with anger, but with interest. Deep, strange interest. "You touched the queen's tail in rage," she said slowly, her eyes glowing brighter. "And still you live. That has meaning among my people," she added with a voice that sent chills down everyone's spine. She turned to her guards. "Take him," she ordered. "Alive, the others may leave. But this one comes with me," she said as the soldiers advanced and Cade stood frozen. None of them understood what had just happened. And that was only the beginning. Cade's arms were chained with a strange, living metal that pulsed like it had a heartbeat. He was marched through narrow canyons by a squad of tall alien guards. None of them spoke to him. None of them looked at him. Only the sound of boots in the sand echoed around him. The alien queen walked ahead, silent and graceful, her long tail flicking like a banner in the wind. The heat of the desert didn't seem to touch her. Her armor glowed with power, symbols shifting across the metal like it was alive. Cade didn't speak either. His body ached, but his mind raced. Why hadn't she killed him? Why did she spare him when her soldiers were ready to shoot? He had broken their sacred rule, whatever it was, and still she had chosen to keep him alive. At last, they entered a hidden valley covered in green vines and glowing flowers. A stone palace, half-grown from the cliffs, rose before them. It was unlike anything Cade had seen, not human, not mechanical. It looked alive. Inside the palace, he was taken to a circular chamber with tall, carved walls and burning crystal torches. The guards chained him to the center stone and stepped away. The queen stood before him, her eyes glowing softly. "You grabbed my tail in rage," she said. "That is a challenge among my people, a right not seen for generations. You forced a bond with your fury, and now I must answer it," she declared. Cade clenched his fists. "I didn't mean for any of that. I just wanted you to know we won't bow to monsters," he said through his teeth. She smiled, just slightly. "You think I am a monster, yet you hold no fear. That makes you either brave or foolish," she said, stepping closer. Cade didn't back away. "Your ships burned my people alive. We lost everything. Don't talk to me about courage. We didn't come here to fight. But you gave us no choice," he said. The queen's expression changed. Something in her eyes flickered. She waved her hand, and the guards left the chamber. Only the two of them remained under the strange glowing light. "I did not order that attack," she said. "The first fire was not lit by my command. There are those in my court who wish for war. I do not." She spoke quietly, almost like it hurt to admit. Cade stared at her. "Then why bring me here? Why not let me go?" he asked, confused by her words. "Because you grabbed the queen's tail," she said again, her tone sharper now. "In our culture, that is not a mere insult. It is a bond challenge, a sacred one. And once done, it cannot be undone," she explained. Cade didn't understand. "What does that even mean?" he asked. She stepped even closer. "It means now your fate is tied to mine, in blood and in breath. You are not just a prisoner anymore. You are bound," she said as the light pulsed around them. Cade's heart pounded in his chest. Bound? What kind of madness was this? He came from a world of war and logic, not rituals and tales. Yet something in her voice made him pause. She wasn't lying. She wasn't bluffing. "You expect me to accept that?" he asked. "No," she replied. "But your acceptance does not change it," she said, as her tail slowly curled behind her again. The silence grew heavier. Then she raised her hand and pointed to his chest. "If you survive the next trial, you may yet walk free. But only if you prove your worth before my people," she said. "What kind of trial?" Cade asked as the ground trembled slightly beneath his feet. Her eyes narrowed. "One that has killed warriors stronger than you," she whispered, and the stone beneath him split open with a low roar. The ground split open beneath Cade, revealing a spiral path of glowing stone steps that led deep into the earth. Two alien guards grabbed his arms and pulled him forward. The queen gave no command, but her gaze alone sent them into motion. They led him down into the darkness where the air grew thick and warm. Crystals lit the path in shifting shades of red and blue. The walls pulsed like they were alive, humming softly like a sleeping beast. Cade tried to keep count of the steps, but he lost track somewhere after 200. His muscles ached, but he refused to stumble. He didn't want to give the aliens the satisfaction of seeing him weak. At the bottom, they entered a circular chamber surrounded by thick, jagged pillars. The floor was made of black glass, smooth and cold under his boots. In the center stood a platform with glowing runes. The queen appeared moments later, stepping out from a hidden doorway carved into the stone. She walked alone, her tail trailing behind her, silent and still. "This is the trial of reflection," she said. "Here, you will face yourself. If you lie, you die. If you run, you fall. If you fight, you may live," she explained without emotion. Cade's eyes narrowed. "I've faced death before. I'm not scared of whatever trick you're planning, he said. Planting his feet firmly, she raised her hand. The runes flared. To life, the air shimmered. And then something stepped out of the shadows across from Cade. It was him. Another Cade. Same eyes. Same scars, same clenched fists. But his reflection wore a cruel smile. And in its eyes was something dark. What is this? Cade asked, his voice suddenly low. This is the part of you try to hide, the one who doesn't care. The one who wants to destroy everything, the queen said from behind the pillars. Cade circled the mirror image slowly. It moved when he moved. It smirked when he glared. Then it spoke. You think you're strong, but you're just pretending. You wanted war. You wanted blood. That's why you grabbed her tail, not for justice. For revenge, the double said. Cade's chest burned with anger. He swung a punch, but the clone blocked it easily and drove a fist into his ribs. Pain shot through his side, and he staggered back. Fighting yourself only makes you weaker, the queen said from above. You must face the truth and still stand, she reminded him without sympathy. The reflection laughed. You think she spared you because you're special? No, she wants to use you. She saw weakness in you. And now you'll die here, broken and forgotten, it taunted. Cade gritted his teeth. The pain didn't matter. The insults didn't matter. He wasn't going to let some twisted version of himself decide who he was. Not today. He blocked the next strike and drove his knee into the clone's chest. The reflection stumbled. Cade didn't stop. He grabbed it by the throat and slammed it into the glowing runes. The floor lit up. The runes shifted. The clone screamed and then shattered into dust. Silence fell over the chamber. The queen stepped down slowly, watching him with unreadable eyes. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. But something in her gaze had changed. You did not run. You did not lie. And you did not fall, she said at last. Cade breathed hard. Sweat pouring down his face. Is that enough for your people? He asked. For them? No, she said. But for me, it is a start, she answered as she walked past him toward the exit. The guards opened the path, and light from above spilled down into the chamber. She looked over her shoulder one last time. Come, human, you've earned your place among us. For now, she said without turning back. And Cade followed her into the light. Asterisk, the queen led Cade through high halls carved from shimmering stone and glowing vines. Alien creatures moved silently along the walls, some floating, some crawling, all watching him as he passed. He didn't speak, and neither did she. Not until they reached a tall doorway guarded by armored warriors with spears of burning light. They stepped aside without a word as the queen passed through. Inside, the air was cooler. The room was circular, filled with tall spires of glass, each one pulsing with images and shifting patterns. At the center stood a ring of alien nobles, all dressed in strange metallic robes. They turned to look at Cade the moment he entered. Their expressions were unreadable, their eyes glowing with suspicion, curiosity and quiet anger. This is the human, the queen announced, her voice loud and clear. He touched my tail. He challenged our ways. And he survived the trial of reflection, she said with power in her voice. A low murmur passed through the chamber. One of the nobles stepped forward. His skin was silver blue, and his face was long and sharp. Survived or not, he is still an outsider. His hands are stained with our blood, the noble said coldly. Another voice rose from the side. This time, a woman, her robes trimmed in gold. The law is clear. He formed a bond by touch. He has been tested. If he stands, he must be honored, she said firmly. The queen raised her hand. The room fell silent again. I claim him, she said, by the right of fire and stone. He is mine to train, mine to judge, mine to protect, she declared. Cade felt his stomach twist. What does that mean exactly? he asked, stepping beside her. She looked at him, her face unreadable. It means you will learn our ways. It means your life is tied to mine. And if I fall, so do you, she answered without hesitation. He clenched his fists. So I'm your shadow now, he asked. No, she said. You are my bond. A symbol. A risk. And perhaps a weapon, she said as the nobles began to whisper again. A new voice echoed through the hall. Deep, cold, dangerous. And what of the trial by blades? Will he face the circle? A noble asked from the shadows. The queen did not flinch. He will. Tomorrow, she answered before turning away. The guards led Cade out of the chamber and into a quiet stone room with no windows. A thick woven mat lay in the center. A bowl of blue fruit was set beside a jug of water. He sat down, exhausted. Everything felt unreal. Yet his body was sore and his mind burned with too many questions. The door slid open again, and a young alien girl entered. She was smaller than the others, dressed in simple robes. Her face was gentle, but her eyes were alert. I'm here to prepare you, she said. For the trial of blades, she added as she handed him a curved training weapon. Made from bone, Cade took the blade. It felt alive in his hand, humming softly. What exactly is the trial? He asked. You face 5 warriors, one after the other. No rest, no help, only skill, she said calmly. And if I lose? He asked. Then the bond ends. And so, does your heart? She replied. She turned to leave but paused at the door. I've never seen the queen protect someone before. Not like this, she said. Then she stepped into the hall and the door closed behind her with a sharp hiss. Cade looked down at the blade in his hands. Whatever happened tomorrow, it would change everything. The sun rose over the alien palace with a golden fire that lit every crystal wall in a glow of burning light. In the center of the arena, 5 warriors waited in silence, each holding a different blade carved from bone, firestone, or scale. Cade stood across from them, his own weapon tight in his grip. His muscles were sore, his mind sharp, and his heart pounding like a war drum. The queen stood high above the arena on a balcony, her arms crossed, tail wrapped tightly behind her. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with expectation. The first warrior stepped forward. He was tall and broad, his skin covered in dark scales. Without a word, he charged. Cade barely dodged the first strike, rolling across the stone floor and rising fast. Their blades clashed, sparking against each other with a hiss. The warrior moved like a storm, fast and heavy. Cade struck low, dodged left and brought his blade up with full force. The edge hit the alien's shoulder, drawing thick blue blood. The crowd gasped. The queen did not move. The warrior grunted, nodded once, and stepped back. He was defeated. The next challenger stepped forward, this one leaner, faster, and armed with 2 blades. This one did not wait. She spun in a flash and brought both blades down toward Cade's chest. He blocked, barely. Her strikes came quick, slicing air, ringing like bells. Cade was forced back step by step, but she overreached. He ducked, swept her leg, and slammed his blade into the ground beside her head. She blinked, stunned, and raised her hands. She yielded. Cade stood, chest heaving. The crowd had fallen silent. Even the nobles watched now with still faces and sharp eyes. The third warrior came forward. This one was older, with gray markings and eyes that seemed to see through flesh. He held a long staff with a curved edge. He didn't move for several seconds, then he did. A single spin, a blur of movement, and Cade was knocked to the ground. Pain shot through his side. He barely raised his weapon in time to block the next strike. It was like fighting a ghost. The warrior moved with no sound, no pause. Cade took a hit to the shoulder, another to the leg. He dropped to one knee, but he waited. He studied the rhythm. And then, when the strike came again, he caught it mid-motion and drove his head into the alien's chest. The old warrior fell, stunned. Cade rose, bloody but standing, 3 down. 2 to go. The fourth warrior didn't smile. She was small but fast, her eyes glowing with fury. She struck like lightning. Cade defended but was pushed to the edge of the ring. One wrong step and he would fall. He waited for her to charge again. When she did, he sidestepped, grabbed her arm, and twisted. She dropped her weapon, and he tossed her backward out of the circle. Defeated, the final warrior stepped forward. This one wore golden armor, and his blade burned with green fire. The crowd stirred. This was a champion, not just a test. Cade gritted. His teeth. His legs trembled, blood dripped from his arm, but he stood tall. The champion bowed, then charged. The fight was brutal. Sparks flew with each strike. The ground cracked under their feet. Cade was cut, slammed, thrown, but he did not fall. He roared and struck back harder, faster. Then, in a final clash, Cade broke the champion's blade with a downward strike and held the broken tip at the alien's throat. The crowd exploded in noise. Warriors shouted. Nobles rose from their seats. The queen raised her hand, and all went silent. "He has earned his place," she declared. Cade dropped the blade and looked up at her. His vision swam, but he smiled. The queen stepped down from the balcony and approached him herself. She placed a hand on his shoulder and looked him in the eyes. "Today, you are no longer a prisoner. You are no longer just a human. Today, you are one of us," she said. And for the first time, the crowd bowed to him. The queen led Cade into her private chamber after the trial. The air was warm, filled with soft glowing light from the crystals lining the walls. Her guards remained outside. Inside, it was only the two of them. Cade sat on a stone bench, holding a cloth to his shoulder where the champion's blade had cut him. His muscles screamed with pain, but his mind burned with confusion. "Why did you really spare me?" he asked at last. "This bond, this trial, it's more than tradition. You knew something the moment I touched your tail," he said. Watching her carefully, the queen stood in front of a glowing wall, her hand tracing one of the ancient symbols. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. When a human touches a queen's tail in rage, it awakens something old. A bond that was forgotten. "Forbidden," she said. Cade narrowed his eyes. "Forbidden by who?" he asked. "By the elders. By the ruling bloodlines. Because it unites two different species through instinct, not politics," she answered as her tail curled slowly. She turned to face him. "Long ago, our ancestors were once close to your kind, before the wars, before the walls. But one union changed everything. It produced a child both human and not. The Empire feared it," she said. "So they erased the records, buried the law. But the bond was never broken. It only waited," she added. "And I triggered it," Cade said, the weight of the truth sinking in. "Yes," she replied. "You triggered the last living law of unity. And now, the court wants you dead more than ever. Because if we stand together, their power ends," she explained. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. The door burst open. A blast of energy struck the wall near the queen. She threw up a barrier with her hand, shielding them both as the light exploded. Against it, assassins in dark armor rushed into the room, weapons raised. These were no trial fighters. They were executioners. Cade rolled forward, grabbing the fallen guard's blade. He didn't think, he moved. He slashed the first attacker in the leg and took a hit across the back. The queen fought beside him. Her movements were fast and brutal, her tail striking like a whip. Together, they pushed the assassins back toward the hall. One of the attackers shouted into a device, "Kill the human. Bring the queen alive," he said before raising a grenade-like orb. Cade tackled him before it could activate. The orb rolled across the floor and exploded in blue smoke. When the air cleared, 3 of the assassins were down. The rest fled into the shadows, disappearing into hidden paths beneath the palace. Cade stood over the wounded, breathing hard. "They're from the council, aren't they?" he asked. "Yes," the queen said. "They fear the bond. They fear change," she added with steady fury. A guard entered behind them, bleeding and panicked. "Your Majesty," he gasped, "the High Chamber has fallen. The nobles have declared your rule broken. They are coming." "All of them," he warned. The queen did not hesitate. She turned to Cade, her voice sharp. "We leave now, not as queen and human. As fugitives. As bondmates," she said. Cade nodded. Without a word. He picked up a fallen rifle and followed her through a secret passage behind the wall. They ran through tunnels glowing with forgotten light. Symbols passed them on the walls, old and pulsing. The queen reached out, touching one. And a heavy gate opened to the wild lands beyond the palace. As they stepped into the night, wind whipping across the cliffs, Cade looked back at the burning towers behind them. "You lost your throne for me," he said. She met his eyes, her face glowing in the moonlight. "No," she said. "I gave it up for what comes next," she answered. They vanished into the shadows together,